Hello, and welcome back to the Hype Mind. Thanks for joining me at my kitchen table for another great video. I want to ask you the question of if you had to accept the reality of any given situation, especially a situation that causes discomfort or pain or a certain hard emotional response, how would you change your response to that situation? So again, if you had to accept the reality of a situation, how would you change your response to that situation? You have to accept the reality of the situation. It is happening, period. I really enjoy the wisdom in understanding that there is a space between stimulus and response. There is a gap between what happened and how I choose to respond or react or act upon what happened. We have a very normal human tendency to react to stimulus. Someone hits your car, you get out, you're angry. You lose your temper and you cuss them out. That's the stimulus, is someone hitting your car and your response is becoming angry. What we don't know a lot of times, what we don't realize, because nobody ever taught us, is that there's actually a space between that thing happening and how we can respond to it. And we can deliberately pause and expand that gap as big as we want. I really love to use this in relationship dynamics of any kind because it allows someone to be themselves and to say, maybe make an insulting comment or maybe challenge you or maybe say something that isn't true. Maybe they blame you. Maybe they say something rude. Maybe they act in a way that isn't loving. Maybe they do something for themselves that otherwise you wouldn't have liked or makes you uncomfortable. And you can pause and you can take all the time you need. You can recognize the existence of this gap and take all the time you need before you respond to say, how do I want to show up? What's important to me? What is in my value system, in my belief system? And, that really determines the way I would like to approach this situation. So that's the first encouraging message, is you can completely control your response to any situation, right? And so that gives us a little fortitude, a little encouragement when we come to situations that are exactly like the ones I just shared in this question of if you accepted the reality of this situation, and realistically it's probably very uncomfortable if there's a part of you that is having a hard time accepting it. How would you change your response? Well, the encouraging thing is, one, we get to respond any way we'd like to, and we can take all the time we need to respond, right? There is a space, we can expand that space, control our response, because it's our response, it's in our control. We can control our response, we can take all the time we need to respond, and yeah, then the power really comes back into our hands. So I want you to envision that. I want you to envision a situation in your life right now or in the past where you felt pain, you felt discomfort, you felt maybe victimization, which would still show up as pain, most likely. You felt suffering, common if you're feeling like a victim. Maybe someone's making you a victim. They said, you're at fault for this, right? It's your fault. You're the victim. You're the persecutor. You're being wrapped up in their drama triangle. So you're going to envision this situation, right? Something that causes you pain, discomfort, a hard emotion, anger, resentment, sorrow, whatever. And then you're going to think about accepting it. This is it. You can't change it. This is the reality. The cool part is how you respond to it is completely up to you. It's in your hands, which is so encouraging. Just saying that, I felt myself breathe a sigh of relief. I felt myself relax. I felt myself feel at peace, noticing that, wow, okay, I can't change the situation, but I get to respond however I want to. I'm in control of my response to this situation. I do have influence in this situation. Maybe I can't change the fact that it happened or that they said it, but I can change how I show up. I can change and determine and decide how I'm going to react and respond, or act, I should say, is better, because you're not necessarily reacting. And so again, well, that power really comes to us when we realize that there's a space between this, that there's a space between this, that we get to make a decision, we get to decide, and then we get to ask ourselves the bigger questions, right? Just like that question initially kind of asked it. If you had to accept the reality of a given situation, how would you change your response? How would you change your response? How do you want to show up when you're not coming from a place of reacting, usually from a place of fear or anxiety or anger, or pain? We're very quick to say, it's not my fault. We're very quick to do one of these four things. Let me pull these up real quick. They're very exciting. When people treat us a certain way, we have a tendency to either defend ourselves, to explain ourselves, to excuse ourselves, or to rationalize, which is still kind of defensive, but to be able to change one of those four things, which is typically a reactive response. It's a reactive response. It's in our biology to want to see a tiger pounce and to defend ourselves or excuse ourselves by running, or to beat the tiger up, right? So these are very normal responses, but they're not necessarily the best responses. Maybe in the situation of a tiger they are, but not in the situation of something that's not actually a tiger, right? Something that's just a friend speaking their needs, or a lover speaking their own pain in another situation, or a person hitting you on the road by a mistake, right? So we want to be careful not to fall into one of those four areas and come from a place of reacting. And we want to come from a place of acting, because when we act, again, that power, that choice is in our hands, and we get to act and respond from a place of what is important to us, from our values, from a place of, I would say, heart-led direction. When we look for our values, look for who we want to be, who we want to show up as, what is important to us, what we value, what we believe, then we're able to respond instead of react, and we're able to do so from a place where we really feel good about ourselves. Genuinely, not just, oh, I defended myself appropriately and I was right, so I feel good, but from a place of feeling good, like, this is who I am. I feel authentic in this moment. I feel very real. I feel very free. I feel very, there's no after feelings of, man, I was kind of rude when I answered that way. Man, they hit me by mistake and I cussed them out and I kind of feel bad about cussing them out. None of that emotional dilemma after our reaction, right? Because we're responding. And our response is going to be something controlled. Our response is going to be something chosen. And that chosen response is going to be, when done properly, something from a place of, this is who I know how to be at my best, I think, and I'm doing my best to be confident about it. And I'm doing my best to follow my belief system and my value system. And so even if we react, or even if we respond in a way that's not perfectly aligned with our own wants and our own values, we're still very happy with the aftermath, saying, I did my best. And I did my best to practice a controlled response instead of a reactive response, which is very typical. So I ask this again as a challenge, because I know somewhere in your life you're going through something similar. You're experiencing some sort of conflict or pain. That's so normal. That's so typical. Don't try to push that out of your life. Let that exist. It's part of living a full life. You're experiencing some degree of pain and discomfort and some cognitive fusion, right? Some thoughts that are really butting against each other. And things are happening to you, always. Situations are happening to you where they're less than ideal. They're not what you'd like to be happening, but they're happening. And so I want to remind you that if you can accept the reality of the situation and say, this is what's happening, this is how it is, I can't control this, how would you change your response to that? Because your response is the part you can control. Your response is the part you have full power over. It is yours, your response. So how would you, given the situation, accepting the situation to be a reality, accepting it to be something you can't change, how would you change your response to it? And remember that little trick, that little tip. There is a gap between stimulus and response, and that gap exists for you to use. Thanks for watching. Please, please, please hit subscribe. It really helps us out immensely. I'm here to help you, and hitting subscribe, hitting like helps me out immensely. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time for watching. As always, peace.